Silent watchers. The Grand Archivist of the Cerulean Academy straightened her 6 arms and glanced around the circular lecture hall. 300 students from a dozen different species stared back, their attention fixed on the holographic display floating above the central podium. "Today," she announced, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into galactic common, "we examine another fascinating ancient myth, the Terran legend." A ripple of amusement passed through the audience. Some students flicked their appendages in the universal gesture of dismissal. Others made the soft chattering sounds of alien laughter. "Yes, yes," the archivist continued, "I'm aware of the entertainment value. But all myths contain kernels of truth. The stories describe bipedal mammals with remarkable adaptability, minimal natural defenses, and yet inexplicable success." She manipulated controls on her console, bringing up ancient schematics of supposed human technology. Records suggest they progressed from atmospheric flight to rudimentary space travel in less than a century. From the back of the lecture hall, a lone figure watched silently. Professor Zektera was considered eccentric even among the Krell, a species known for their obsessive research habits. Where others saw myth, Zektera saw incomplete history. Where colleagues laughed at human improbability, Zektera collected evidence. The archivist continued her lecture, treating the human stories as amusing folklore rather than historical record. When the session ended, students filed out still chattering about the ridiculous concept of humans. Zektera remained, approaching the central podium after the hall emptied. "Another entertaining session, Archivist Chikora," Zektera said, mandibles clicking softly. "Though I note you still classify humans as mythological." The archivist's skin flushed a dismissive blue. "Because they are myths, Professor, created by frontier colonists to explain technology they didn't understand, or perhaps cautionary tales about the dangers of unchecked aggression." She began collecting her data crystals. No credible evidence suggests humans ever existed beyond stories. And the anomalies in astronomical records from the pre-Alliance era, the unexplained radiation signatures near the Perseus Void, the consistent descriptions across dozens of unconnected cultures. Coincidence, natural phenomena, cultural cross-contamination. The archivist waved a dismissive limb. "Professor, your obsession with these fantasies borders on the unprofessional. The Academic Council has concerns about funding my research. Yes, I'm aware." Zektera's outer eyes narrowed while her central eye remained fixed on the archivist. "History isn't just what we choose to remember, Chikora. Sometimes it's what we've deliberately forgotten." The archivist gathered her materials and departed without further comment. Zektera remained alone in the vast hall, activating her personal data terminal. New messages flashed urgently. One from her research assistant, "BREKT. GGO in deep space, ANNOMALI. Come, MMED8 Zektera's laboratory occupied an isolated wing of the Academy, far from the prestigious central facilities. The room buzzed with the energy of neglected genius, data screens covering every wall, ancient artifacts and recovered technology scattered across workbenches, and holographic star charts spinning slowly in the center. Grell, her Flaxian assistant, didn't look up when she entered. All 4 of his eyes were locked on incoming data streams. "What have you found?" Zektera asked, moving directly to the main console. "Signal anomalies from monitoring station DX9, at the edge of the Perseus Void." Grell's tentacles flew across the interface. They began 3 cycles ago, increasing in frequency and complexity. The screen displayed wave patterns that pulsed with mathematical precision, not natural phenomena. "Pattern matching?" Zektera asked, her excitement building. "Running comparison against all known species communication protocols." Grell paused, turning all 4 eyes toward his mentor. "No matches, but when I compared against the patterns from the ancient records you recovered from Earth Site Alpha." He pulled up a second data stream. The patterns aligned perfectly. Zektera's breath caught. "Human communication protocols. It's not just signals," Grell continued. Gravitational sensors are detecting mass displacements. Something big is moving at the edge of Alliance space. Zektera stared at the data. Her life's work suddenly validated. They never vanished. They've been waiting. Across Alliance space, the first reports were dismissed as sensor malfunctions. Frontier outposts reported strange readings that vanished before confirmation. Patrol vessels encountered brief, unexplained shadows on their scanners. Then came the images. The trading post at Nexus Station captured the first clear footage. A massive vessel, unlike any known Alliance design, silently passing near the station's outer markers. The ship was immense, with sleek lines that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. It bore no recognizable markings except for a simple insignia, a stylized planet with a sword and an olive branch. Within days, similar sightings flooded in from across the galactic rim. Not one ship, but dozens, perhaps hundreds. The Alliance Council called an emergency session. Zektera was summoned from academic obscurity to stand before the assembled representatives of 87 sapient species. "These cannot be humans," insisted the Valorian ambassador, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "Humans are myths, stories to frighten hatchlings." "Then explain the ships," countered the Dravian representative. "Explain the signals matching exactly the theoretical patterns Professor Zektera has documented for decades." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some demanded immediate military response. Others suggested diplomatic outreach. Many simply refused to accept the evidence before them. High Chancellor Tholak raised all 6 appendages, calling for silence. "Professor Zektera, you have studied these humans longer than anyone. What should we expect?" Zektera approached the central podium, acutely aware that her academic fringe theory had suddenly become the most important knowledge in the galaxy. "The historical records are incomplete," she began carefully, "but they consistently describe humans as intensely adaptive, capable of rapid technological advancement when threatened." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "And they appear to hold grudges across generations." Grudges? The Chancellor's skin paled. What grudge could they possibly hold against us? Before Zektera could answer, the chamber's communication systems activated without authorization. On every screen and holographic display appeared a simple message in perfect galactic common. "We are MB what you chose to forget. Prepare to receive representatives of the United Earth Alliance." The human vessel that approached the Alliance capital world was smaller than the massive ships patrolling the borders, but no less impressive. It moved with impossible precision, its propulsion systems defying known physics. Defense systems couldn't even lock onto its constantly shifting energy signature. It took position directly above the council tower and simply waited. After hours of frantic debate, the council agreed to receive the human representatives. Security was tripled. Emergency evacuation protocols were established. Every weapon in the capital was armed and aimed skyward. A single transport departed the human vessel. It descended toward the council tower's landing platform, where a hastily assembled diplomatic reception waited. Zektera stood among them, her heart racing with scholarly excitement despite the tension. When the transport doors opened, the assembled aliens fell silent. Humans were exactly as the ancient records described, bipedal, soft-skinned, seemingly vulnerable. They wore fitted black uniforms bearing the sword and olive branch insignia, and moved with calm confidence. The lead human, distinguished by silver markings on her uniform, approached the delegation. She surveyed the assembled aliens with eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "I am Admiral Helena Chen of the United Earth Alliance," she announced, her voice perfectly translated by devices no one had provided her. "We have returned to reclaim our place in galactic history." Chancellor Tholak stepped forward, all 6 limbs extended in the universal greeting. "The Galactic Alliance welcomes you, though we confess surprise at your existence. Our records are unclear about human civilization." "Your records," Admiral Chen replied coldly, were deliberately purged following the purification conflict. Your ancestors tried to erase us from history after failing to erase us from reality. Murmurs spread through the delegation. The purification conflict was itself considered semi-mythological, a dark period 5,000 years ago, when several emerging spacefaring species disappeared during first contact. That's impossible. The Valorian ambassador protested. No species could hide for 5 millennia. Admiral Chen smiled, but the expression contained no warmth. We didn't hide. We watched. We learned. We prepared. She turned to Zektera. Though a few of you suspected the truth. Zektera's outer eyes widened in surprise. You know who I am. Professor Zektera of the Krell, leading expert on human mythology. Your research was remarkably accurate, though incomplete. The Admiral gestured to her staff. We've monitored your publications with great interest. The revelation that humans had been watching, gathering intelligence while remaining undetected, sent a chill through the delegation. What do you want? Chancellor Tholak asked, abandoning diplomatic pretense. Admiral Chen's expression remained impassive. First, acknowledgement. Your alliance will formally recognize humanity's existence and rightful place among spacefaring civilizations. Second, truth. The historical record will be corrected to include the attempted genocide of our species. Third, reparations to be negotiated. She paused, her gaze sweeping the assembled aliens. We come in peace, for now. The choice of what follows rests with you. As the human delegation returned to their transport, they left behind a galaxy in turmoil. Myths had become reality. Ancient sins had returned to haunt a civilization that had chosen comfortable forgetting over uncomfortable truth. And silently watching it all, Professor Zektera felt vindication and terror in equal measure. Her life's work proven correct at last, but at what cost to the galaxy she called home? The Reckoning. The emergency session of the Alliance Council stretched into its third day. Representatives from 87 species argued, threatened, and pleaded as reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. Human ships had positioned themselves near every major Alliance world. They took no hostile action. They made no threats. They simply watched with silent, overwhelming presence. We cannot simply capitulate to these demands. The Valorian ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with agitation, acknowledging genocide, reparations, based on events from 5,000 years ago. Events we have no record of, countered the Dravian representative. If we committed such atrocities, where is the evidence? Chancellor Tholak raised his appendages for silence. Professor Zektera has been examining the data package provided by the human delegation. All eyes turned to Zektera, who stood before the assembly with the uncommon stillness that Krell displayed only in moments of extreme stress. The evidence is compelling, she began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. Astronomical records matching known Alliance archives. Genetic samples preserved from human colonies that were targeted. Military communications intercepted during the conflict. She paused. And most damning, council records from that era that were thought purged but were merely buried in classified archives. She activated the central display. Ancient footage played. Alliance warships surrounding Earth colonies. Mass drivers launching kinetic weapons at defenseless settlements. The systematic destruction of human outposts. The purification doctrine, Zektera continued, was enacted by the early Alliance following first contact with humanity. Humans were deemed evolutionarily dangerous. Their rapid adaptation and technological development considered a threat to galactic stability. The council chamber fell silent as footage showed burning human cities, fleeing civilian ships being targeted by Alliance weapons. Why didn't they fight back? Someone finally asked. They did, Zektera replied, but they were outnumbered with inferior technology. The Alliance believed the extermination was complete. A handful of human ships escaped into uncharted space. The Alliance erased all records of the conflict, recategorizing humans as mythological to avoid confronting the genocide. Chancellor Tholak's skin had paled to a sickly gray, and they've spent 5,000 years. What? Planning revenge, surviving, building, watching. Zectera switched the display to show the current positions of human ships throughout Alliance space. Their technological advancement is unprecedented. The ships we're seeing utilize principles our science hasn't even theorized. So we've confirmed we tried to exterminate them, failed, and now they've returned with superior technology and have us surrounded. The Valorian's crystalline form dimmed with dread. What options remain besides surrender or annihilation? Before anyone could answer, the chamber's communication systems activated again, this time projecting the image of Admiral Chen. The Alliance Council is cordially invited to send representatives to our flagship for continued negotiations, she announced. Professor Zectera's presence is specifically requested. The human flagship, Remembrance, dwarfed the Council's diplomatic vessel. As they approached, Zectera studied its impossible construction through the viewport, a hull that seemed to phase between solid and energy states, propulsion systems that defied known physics, and defensive capabilities that rendered it effectively invulnerable to Alliance weapons. The delegation, Chancellor Tholak, representatives from the 4 founding Alliance species, and Zectera, was received in a cavernous meeting chamber. The walls displayed star maps showing human territory extending far beyond Alliance space into regions long considered uninhabitable. Admiral Chen entered with her staff, nodding to the delegation. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Did we have a choice? The Valorian ambassador asked bitterly. There are always choices, Chen replied. 5,000 years ago, your ancestors chose genocide over coexistence. Today, you face different choices. Chancellor Tholak stepped forward. We've reviewed the evidence. If accurate, the Alliance bears responsibility for unconscionable acts against your species. If Chen's voice hardened, our archives contain the genetic sequences of every human killed in your purification. We preserve the names of 3.7 billion dead. There is no if about what happened. The Chancellor's appendages drooped in submission. The current Alliance cannot undo the past. What terms would allow peaceful coexistence moving forward? Different humans stepped forward, older, with white hair and eyes that seemed to hold ancient knowledge. I am Director Marcus Okafor, Historical Justice Division. He introduced himself. While we cannot resurrect our dead, we can restore their memory to galactic history. Displays activated around the chamber, showing educational materials, historical archives, and cultural records, all with human history systematically removed or categorized as fictional. The erasure was thorough, Okafor continued. Not just military records, but art, literature, scientific achievements, all recategorized as mythology or attributed to other species. Zectera felt a chill as she recognized academic papers, some of her own, that had dismissed human accomplishments as legends. Our first demand remains acknowledgement, Admiral Chen said. A formal declaration from the Alliance Council recognizing the historical genocide and subsequent cover-up. The Chancellor conferred briefly with the other representatives before nodding. This can be arranged immediately. Second, Chen continued, restoration. Human contribution to galactic knowledge will be properly attributed. The historical record will be corrected. Also acceptable, the Chancellor agreed. Third, reparations. Chen's expression remained impassive. Not in resources. We have no need of your technology or materials. Instead, we require territorial acknowledgement. The star map zoomed out, revealing the true extent of human expansion. A vast network spreading through regions of space the Alliance had never successfully explored. The United Earth Alliance claims these regions as sovereign territory, Chen explained. Many contain former human colonies your ancestors attempted to destroy. We have rebuilt them. The galactic map now showed a human civilization nearly twice the size of the Alliance, hidden in plain sight for millennia. The Valorian ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. Impossible. How could you expand so far without detection? The same way we positioned our fleet throughout your territory before you noticed. Chen replied calmly. Your civilization believes itself the pinnacle of evolution. That arrogance created blind spots we exploited. Director Okafor stepped forward again. We could have returned centuries ago with sufficient force to destroy the Alliance. We chose patience instead. Why? Zektera asked suddenly, her scholarly curiosity overcoming protocol. Why wait so long? Admiral Chen turned to her with something resembling respect. Because genocide would make us no better than those who try to eradicate us. We waited until we were certain we could return from a position of unassailable strength without needing to fire a single shot. Chen gestured, and the displays showed human ships throughout Alliance space. Not just warships, but medical vessels, research stations, cultural exchanges ready to deploy. We don't want war, Professor Zektera. We want recognition. We want truth. For the first time, Chen's stern expression softened slightly. Your research helped keep our memory alive, however distorted. For that, humanity owes you gratitude. Chancellor Tholak's diplomatic training reasserted itself. The Alliance accepts your terms. We will acknowledge the historical crimes, correct the record, and recognize your territorial claims. He paused. What happens next? Coexistence, Chen replied. On equal terms, humanity has advanced beyond your understanding in some areas. You have developed technologies we lack in others. Together, we could build something greater than either civilization alone. She extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement that had been lost to galactic culture for 5 millennia. After a moment's hesitation, the Chancellor extended all 6 appendages to meet it. The formal acknowledgement ceremony was broadcast across both civilizations. On billions of worlds, species who had never heard of humans or had dismissed them as myths watched as Chancellor Tholak read the Declaration of Historical Reconciliation. 5,000 years ago, the early Galactic Alliance committed an unconscionable act of genocide against humanity. When that genocide failed, the Alliance compounded its crime by systematically erasing humans from history, reducing a vibrant civilization to myth and legend. Today, we acknowledge this historical truth and pledge to restore humanity's rightful place in galactic memory. At the Academy, the Grand Archivist Chikora watched the broadcast with stunned disbelief. The myths she had so confidently dismissed now stood before her as living beings. In the coming days, human cultural and scientific missions deployed throughout Alliance space. The species so long considered imaginary revealed themselves to be not just real, but possessing technological and cultural achievements that defied understanding. Zektera found herself appointed as the Alliance's first official ambassador to humanity. As she prepared for her posting on Earth, a planet whose very existence had been debated in academic circles, she reflected on the fragility of historical truth. Her personal data terminal chimed with a message from Admiral Chen. Truth has a way of surviving, Professor, even when buried under millennia of denial. Your new office at the embassy includes complete access to human historical archives. No more fragments and speculation. We look forward to reading your revised works. As Zektera packed her research notes, now historical curiosities themselves, she smiled at the irony. She had spent her career being ridiculed for believing humans existed. Now she would spend the rest of her life helping the galaxy understand just how wrong they had been to forget them. Above major Alliance worlds, human ships maintained their silent vigil, not as threats, but as reminders. The species that had been erased from history had returned, not seeking vengeance but demanding something far more powerful, to be remembered. The galaxy would never forget humans again.